What's up, guys, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Draft Duel, the creme de la creme of the Legacies Allure world. The top of the peak, what everyone wants to achieve, where everyone wants to get to, playing 160 gold draft. As always, I'm joined by the rather wonderful Mr. Robo, or Speed Robo to you guys. How are we doing, my friend?
I am doing absolutely fantastic today. The sun is out, the birds are singing. It might still be winter, but it's 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm loving it.
Nice. I'm disappointed you didn't say the Gladehawks are singing, you went the birds are singing, but don't worry.
Oh no!
Yeah, we'll mark that down on you. It gets put on your pay slip, don't worry. It's a deduction, but it's fine, you'll learn. You know, we're all here to learn. And then, as you guys are as well, we're here to learn this wonderful game of Legacies Law. A quick rundown before we dive into it. This is the draft mode. This is the competitive mode, should we say, of Legacies Law. Not the Blitz isn't competitive, but this is the tournament mode, should we say. So both players bring 160 gold kingdoms to the table, and they draft down to 80 gold's worth of units on the board. Once that is the case, then the fight begins, or the duel begins, if we want to keep it nice and thematic. It's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to Mr. Robo taking us through the decks. So without keeping you guys here anymore, let's jump into this game of draft. So, Mr. Robo, we are into this game. We can see the flurry of wonderful cards. We can see it's Aurelia versus Anwyn. A lot of information is blessed upon our eyes right now. Talk us through what really stands out to you upon first looks.
Oh, for sure. The number one thing that I saw when I was looking at these two lineups is that Sylvan is on the attack and Erengard is on the defense. This may be an uphill battle for Sylvan. This isn't a list that particularly favors going first or going on the attack, but it does have one hyper-aggressive unit in its lineup on the Sylvan end, and that is Bull Elk. It's got 3 movement, 4 power, 6 health, the ability to move and attack with charging, and the ability that prevents it from being attacked by chargers in the form of Steadfast. This means that you can place Bull Elk in your front line and keep it safe, and then when you're ready to move it in and deal some major damage, you can do that as well. Bull Elk is absolutely going to get drafted on the Sylvan side.
Yep.
Moving over to Aaron. Oh, sorry, Woody.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and as you rightly said, a very high stat unit, but it comes at a price, right? 12 gold is not a light price.
For sure. It is definitely one of the most expensive units in this list. Right up there with the likes of Thorn Elemental. Moving over to the Erengard side, we're seeing those crossbowmen come down. A lot of archers, which really plays into that defender role. You want to keep your opponent at a distance and pin down their health as much as possible in the early game. And Aurelia's Sunstrike kit is very conducive to that. It is a global range damage dealing spell that can target any unit that already has damage on it. Just coming in, bombing them from orbit with the laser of judgment. I think that could be cards that we see play on the Aurelia end. And Frost Maiden as well, playing strongly into this strategy, dealing a bunch of damage to a cluster of 3 units together in a triad.
Indeed, yeah. And as you said, those crossbowmen, what's so great about these crossbowmen, well, on defense is that they gain +1 power if attacking an exhaust unit. And obviously, playing second means you're effectively 1 exhaust unit ahead of your opponent, right? They've got 1 more exhaust unit for you, meaning potentially more cannon fodder for you to target with the crossbowmen.
Yep, exactly. So we are now back over to Jacob on the play. He's picking Arbor Mage. An interesting choice. Oh, wait, no, he's changing his mind?
Oh, no, I think we passed over.
Blue still has to draft a bunch more gold, it looks like. He passed the turn a little bit too prematurely there.
Yep, so for those who don't know, you have to draft up to your opponent's gold. So, for example, Jacob had 32 gold on the table. Gravy would have to meet the 32 or go over 33, 37, 40 to then pass the draft back to Jacob.
Absolutely. But to check out the Sylvan lineup a little bit more, we've got Ursa Major and Ursa Minor on the field. 2 movement charging units in excellent drafting position because that means they are in range to threaten the center hex. And as Legacy's Allure fans will know, the way to win the game is to capture and hold that center hex like a big game of King of the Hill, and Ursa Major and Ursa Minor are in position to do that right now.
Indeed. And now
Knight.
So yeah, some of the staples of Arengard coming down. Knight is always a card. I feel like there's always some form of Knight on the board when you're playing Arengard. Whether it be the regular Knight, whether it be the heavy Knight, there's always a Knight there. I personally wish I didn't see them. They're not my favorite cards, but they are incredibly strong cards, and they do a great job of chasing down Sylvan units because Sylvan units don't tend to come with the most chunkiest of health.
Absolutely. And another problem that Sylvan has is they have no way to deal magic damage. So that armor 1 is pretty much always going to be active on that Knight, making it a very hard card to kill if you're Sylvan. I'm expecting Knight to charge in straight into that center and see if he can hold it.
Indeed. Do you think we see Thorn Elemental here, the spell proof and the physical damage return? Physical damage return being potentially a really good answer to some of the ranged units as well. Any damage you do that's physical, you're taking back on that unit.
Well, personally, I don't think we're going to see it. It's a unit that is very slow, and while, yeah, its keywords are fantastic for this matchup, its stats just aren't. Keep in mind that the Sylvan player, Jacob, he's currently on the attack, so Thorn Elemental, ultimately, it's just not an attacker. It's very much playing into the defender role of slowly moving forward, inching forward, waiting for the opponent to misplay. But when you're the attacker, you've got to be the tempo setter. And Thorn Elemental, that's not a card that can set tempo.
Indeed. And it comes in at the same price as the Bull Elk, which you highlighted earlier. And Bull Elk very much being an aggressor, right? It has the free movement, it has the charging, it can really get up in there. The 4 damage clears out a lot of units, so it's a card that you do not want to look over by any means.
Yep. And now we're seeing some abilities from the Anwyn side. All of Anwyn's abilities are incredibly strong and made even stronger by his hero's special trait that whenever Anwyn uses an ability, he can pay an additional mana to give Anwyn an extra action this round. A really strong ability, to be sure. This makes Anwyn the best spellcaster in the game.
Yeah, and we see the Arcane Stone to potentially, if they choose to draft it, give that +1 regen to give them more sustainability, so you can use that action like more times in the early rounds and not be punished later on because you get that regen every round.
Yep, it's a card that's already on Gravy's side for his Aurelia. He is going for a high damage multi-shot Sunstrike build, something I personally respect a lot. I think we're going to see Aurelia drafted in the back line and used basically as a magical catapult. A really smart play given the defender role.
Indeed, yeah, and that's one. So there's 1 gold, 2 mana to do 3 damage because Sunstrike 2 will be combined with the Izabek staff, and that will be able to give it +1 power, meaning it will do 3 damage from the Sunstrike anywhere they want on the board. And I will repeat what I said a minute ago. Sylvan don't come with the most chunkiest of health. That is also magic damage. So if there is any armor, which I'm pretty sure there isn't in the Sylvan list, then that would bypass the armor to just do straight raw health damage.
That's right, Woody. Shieldbearer coming down, one of the best supporting units in Arengard. The ability to give a temporary health point in the form of shields to any unit you want cannot be understated how good that is.
Yep. So as these drafts are starting to kind of unfold now, we can kind of get the idea of positioning, especially over on Gravy's side, I believe, playing Arengard, which how is it starting to pan out for you? How is it as you'd expect? Any surprise choices in there for you?
Uh, Honestly, not really. I think both players are playing. Now, I don't want to say both players are playing within my expectations. I'm a mega genius who can calculate everything. But what I do want to say is that both players, I think, are playing incredibly well. These are just solid, fundamental Legacies Allure moves we're seeing here. You know, attackers in the front, tanks in the middle, flankers on the side, archers in that, like, middle slice right there, that B, D, F, and H line, and then all the supports and healers you're getting to see all the way in the back on those 5 back hexes. Just really incredibly solid fundamentals. I have no complaints with anything that's happening right now.
Indeed, and as you said, you said everyone's playing incredibly well. A lot of people will be watching this and saying they've not played yet. They haven't, but this is a joy of Legacy's Law, right? The game, it can't so much be won or lost in the draft. However, it can very much give you a very big advantage if you draft or outdraft your opponent. If you count your opponent's draft very heavily, it can give you a huge advantage going into the game. It removes all randomness from the game. There's no top decking. There's no hoping I find this certain card. All information is public. You have the ability to literally counter your opponent. So by you saying that both players are playing well, meaning that they are counter drafting each other very well with both positioning and unit select.
Exactly, Woody. How I always describe the drafting phase to your more traditional war game players is, you know how in like War Machine or Warhammer, both players deploy very far away, and there's that, you know, opening game sort of positioning and maneuvering your army around your opponents. That's essentially what this draft phase is doing. Another way to look at it is that these are like your openings in chess. You know, you've got your downloaded list of openings, you're watching your opponent play their openings, you're manipulating yours, trying to get your opponent to think you're going for like the hedgehog defense, but in reality, you're doing something completely different and stuff like that. That is what the draft phase is like, and it is one of my favorite elements of the Legacies Allure gameplay itself. I think the draft in of itself is incredibly fascinating, interesting, and intense.
Yeah. No, I have to agree. Completely agree. It is daunting at first, doing your first draft. I will not lie. It is daunting. But once you get your head around it, once you get the idea of the cards, you get a feel for the cards, you get cards that you enjoy playing, you enjoy working with, you enjoy moving, you enjoy building an army around, it very much becomes a very pleasurable experience and an amazing experience when you know that you're playing your opponent based on skill, not based on RNG or randomness.
And Woody, I just realized something. There's something that I completely overlooked that Jacob has that I also think Gravy hasn't seen. So you may have noticed Gravy's taken a bunch of knights and enforcers with armor. There is a secret little item down in Jacob's list called the Talisman of Precision that gives all allied ranged units the ability to attack with piercing, and that will cut straight through the enemy unit's armor. That is huge.
Wow. So it reduces the range by 1, but as you said, it does increase the pierce. It gives them piercing. So yeah, the knights just can get cut down so easy with that removal of armor.
Yep. Now all Jacob has to do is the question I have left is Jacob going to draft this card? And I don't think he's going to. I think he's already at 80 gold, which is fine. He's got other options and other ways to deal with that knight. The Norfang Sorcerer can break it and remove the armor that way. No, wait. No, he still has 8 gold, actually. Hold on. Still has a chance to grab it. Is he going to?
Because the Arbor Mage as well could be used, right, to give the physical damage return.
Oh my goodness, you're right. Arbor Mage, another excellent pick to try and counter this. And he has chosen not to draft the Talisman of Precision. I respect it, even if I'm a little disappointed that we aren't going to see this incredibly cool item this game. But hey, it's there for next time. We're going straight into the battle phase. Jacob on the attack, using his Deepwood Protector to maneuver that Gladehawk into position. Going to use it to try and deal damage to one of those archers. Setup play coming in from Spell Cradle Seraph.
Oh,
Maybe?
Yeah, possibly? Put a question mark at the end of the sentence. So which would I be going for here? The cast range, the spell range, or the spell proof onto the Frostbane? I'm assuming not the spell proof, but a cast range or spell power. Do you think they'll be going for?
It's very hard to say. It is genuinely very hard to say, Woody. Any of them are incredibly good options. He is immediately shouting, Beyblade, let it rip with that Frost Maiden, going in to deal 1 damage and root the Ursa Major. I think that is, if I'm being frank, I think that's a bad play. There's so much debuff removal on his enemy's side, it is essentially handing him a free action. He can just use Anwyn's ability to remove the debuff, heal up his Ursa Major, give it shield, and give Anwyn an extra action. No worries at all.
Yep. So is there any reason why the Frostbane isn't tapped after doing the ability, the action?
The Frost Maiden should be tapped. Let me go ahead and click on that for you. Does that I think it's one of those tabletop simulator goofs there.
We got one of those little those elements where it is tapped, but it's not tapped for me. Okay, that's fine. So it is tapped, people. Do not worry. It's anonymous play on that one now. So Ursa Major now down to 4 health, which is not. It's a pretty scary place to be. Pretty scary place to be.
Oh, it can be absolutely terrifying. That Sunstrike we mentioned earlier coming in from Aurelia, just a big beam of death from the sky. Apparently, the big man up top is not a fan of bears today.
Not at all. Not at all. And when so both heroes have been used very early in this opening round between Gravy and Jacob. Anwyn using there to remove the debuff on the Ursa Major, remove the rooted, but then Aurelia being used to just absolutely rain down. Got in touch with old Felix over at the Gears of War and said, hey, Hammer of Dawn, can you bring it down on this bear that's really irritating me? And bang! In it came. Felix done his job, and the bear is licking its wounds now from the rain down of fire.
Right now, if I was Jacob, I would seriously consider just using the Deepwood Mystics to heal this Ursa Major back up. During the early stages of most games in Legacy's Allure, you're going to see a lot of players using their setup abilities, their more passive abilities, trying to stay in formation and get the opponent to break their line first to try and punish them sort of getting out of formation and leaving a piece hanging open for you to try and take.
Yes, indeed. It's a lot more tentative, right, than, say, the Blitz game, because Blitz, you're not stuck with your units, but you're only choosing their positioning. So if your opponent's got something that directly counters you, you're trying to be either aggressive to make sure you can get you get the upper hand on action economy or things like that. Draft, you know which are your staple units. You know your game plan going into it, and it's about, like you said, the chess movements to manipulate and execute that game plan. So I always find draft to be a lot more tentative when it comes to the opening actions of a game.
You're dead on, my friend. Like I always describe it to players just starting out, think of Blitz as the TCG flavored format and Draft as the war game flavored format. Wisp coming in to use its break, going to be shutting down the Ultra Knights charging and armor for this round.
That could be huge, right? Getting rid of the armor there to make it so now any damage done to it will go straight onto the health as well, and it can't charge. I mean, that's 5 damage. I mean, the Ultra Knight is an absolute beast of a unit. 5 damage charging, and it can charge stuff with Steadfast. However, it's like, no. You're staying right there, my friend, and you're going to take extra damage if we ping you because you've got no armor.
You got it. Shield Bearer activating its ability to give an extra shield to Priest. A wise decision. Jacob, having 2 Gladehawks on board, can make his opponent's 1 health units in danger very, very quickly.
Yep, yeah. And now Gladehawk would literally be a kamikaze Gladehawk if it was to go into the priest right now with that one shield. It wouldn't kill the priest, but it would unfortunately get rid of itself. So yeah, I like that play there, putting the shield bearer across, giving a bit more sustainability to the sustainability card.
Yep, I could not agree more. And that's part of the reason why I like shield bearers, you know? Like, they allow you to just give that little bit of extra health, a little bit of extra defense to the cards that really need it. And now we are seeing Jacob sort of maneuver around his units in the back, get his flankers more into position. That Norfane Great Hunter is now threatening the center hex just in case Gravy wants to move in and try to capture it at the start of the next round. He's going to have a hard time to do that.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. I've got to say, Tactician's one of my favourite cards in the game. I expect it to be used relatively soon. It's a great reactive card because your opponent can commit something or make a move and their unit's exhausted. And you can choose to give you a pathing, +1 power, +1 range, +1 movement to a unit around you. And then really they're sitting ducks. They're there and they're like, this unit's more powerful now. I didn't take account for that. Now I'm going to die. I love Tactician as a reactive card.
Fully agree. Tactician, oh my gosh, it's so cool. There's so many cool things that Tactician has done to me as well, you know? Like, its ability to grant pathing has surprised me so many times. You know, I set up a wall to protect one of my units against a knight, and then my opponent just says, teehee lol, Tactician, knight as pathing, zips straight through all my units and kills my guy. It's a very cool card. It's a very fun card, but it can also make you say, come on, man, when it's used against you in certain ways. And that adds a lot of fun and spice to the game.
Indeed. I love this play. I've got to say, Arbor Mage using the hedge over on the Ursa Minor to give it steadfast, and then taking that extra shield in center hex, putting them at 7 hit points, but the steadfast meaning that they just cannot be charged. They could be pinged if they should be wanted to from any ranged units, but the steadfast is going to stop that charging. So even when they're exhausted, the crossbowmen, they can't come in and get the +1 power. The knights can't come in and get and do damage because the steadfast is stopping all of that going on.
You are correct, and most of those ranged units like Frost Maiden are tapped down. Aurelia's tapped as well. So Ursa Minor is looking pretty safe in that center. Really smart play and a really good play, especially considering that Jacob's win condition is to have a card in that center hex at the end of the game, whereas all Gravy has to do is try and repel Jacob from capturing that center.
Indeed, indeed. And that will be because Jacob went first, right? So first player has to have a unit in the center hex. Second player, if there are no units in the center hex, then second player wins.
That is correct. One thing I'd be thinking about if I was Jacob is the fact that priest is still active and ready to go. That prevents a lot of potential things he could do. You know, any chip damage he does to a card is going to get wiped away by that priest immediately. This might be an instance where we see Jacob starting to skip a little bit early just to get that go first and try and... Oh, he is actually going to be using the Gladehawk to deal damage to Longbow Archer. Okay, I don't know, because Priest is just going to heal it.
Well,
we're skipping.
But personally, I quite like this play because does Priest want to use one of its mana and its action on a Longbow Archer on the 3 gold unit? It's like I personally always find those positions. I'm like, do I want to be healing this card? I'm not too sure. But he skipped, and there we go. Gladehawk's going to come in. Trade 2 Gladehawks for your Longbow.
Gladehawk's still taking that Longbow. Okay. Turning off one of the enemy archers. Oh my goodness, and now, if Jacob wants it, he could just start skipping, and he will guaranteed have the first turn at the start of the next round. This could be huge.
Yeah.
No, he's choosing to heal. Okay, I still like that play. But now it's over to Gravy. Is Gravy wanting to use any of his actions?
It's very tentative at the moment. I know you said
Mm-hmm.
this before in previous weeks, but again, the clock really comes into consideration in these in these draft matchups, because the clock's used during the draft as well. And you can see now that these guys are the time is ticking down, and we're still in round one. We're almost some of them are over 50% through their clock, so it's nearly at 50% through their clock. So it's yeah, it definitely is a factor that comes in.
Absolutely. You know, you got to keep an eye on that clock, just like in a chess game. If you run out of time, you lose.
Yep. The disarm on the Ursa Minor, that's savage, right? That's removing all damage.
Mhm.
Although, is there anything really that's going to be pushing too much damage anyway?
Not this round. So I don't think it does a whole lot right now. Ooh, going to use the big roar to get Halberdier out of the way.
I mean, Halberd is not the most mobile unit, so pushing it back
Hmm.
is it's never a bad option. It's that one extra hex it's going to need to move to go. Oh, they may be going back on that decision now. But I
Thinking,
don't dislike that, pushing it back in there and kind of keeping it further away. So yeah, you got to take one extra step, and you can't take many steps anyway, my friend. Oh,
it basically wastes that card's action. I like this play a lot. Yeah, and
yeah,
Halberdier just have to move back. At any time, Jacob could start skipping and grab the go first.
yeah.
And if he does go first, honestly, what I would do is I would use Arbor Mage and spend one extra mana to permanently give Ursa Minor Steadfast. I think that that could be incredibly strong. Spellcradle Seraph moving in. This is going to prevent the Halberdier from getting roared at the start of the next round again. Smart play.
Both players are still not choosing to go. Oh, there we go. There we see the skip
Yeah,
now.
we're gonna see it. Oh my goodness, removing the
Oh, the priest is removing the ultimate, and it's disarmed, but it has got steadfast though, right? So
no, but alternate ignores
of
Steadfast.
course, of course. So no wonder. Oh, we see the Great Hunt coming up.
Great Hunter coming in to protect the Ursa Minor. Knight flying in with its +1 movement.
Yeah, that's huge as well. We'll have a look at the end of the round. We'll have a look at the units lost pile and look at the gold rack up there. But this is really when we when we thought turns would start to be skipped, the removal of the debuff comes from the on the Ultra Knight, and Ultra Knight is back in the game, clearing out that Great
And
Northern
that
Hunter.
and that's what I love about Legacy's Allure. Every time I think I know what's going to happen, something shows up to surprise me and makes me think on my feet. Never a dull game with Legacy's Allure, that is for sure. And Jacob is going to go first in round two. Anwyn currently under threat from a Knight's Charge. Ultra Knight not afraid to try and deal some damage to these Ursas. What is... What's
Nothing,
Jacob gonna do?
nothing coming over, and here we see. So they're going to be giving they're going to be
Rooting.
rooting the
Rooting
knight.
the... I
There.
think that's probably the best thing you could do right now. Frost Maiden with huge double Ice Nova on the Ursa Minor.
Yeah, so all enemy units in target, the tripod hex I call it, take 2 magic damage and have
Yep.
-1 movement. So these bears only have 1 movement this round now. So that's really big. It does big damage to them and it slows them down as well. Very very strong.
Not not only that, but they are also both damaged now, which means they are vulnerable to Sunstrike.
Of course, yes. Priest is locked in there though, so the priest at the moment isn't going to be able to get up here to remove the debuff on Knight to allow Knight to threaten Anwyn. It's kind of locked in there, doesn't have pathing itself, and it's out of the 4 range to be able to remove that debuff from Knight. And we see Spellproof coming in now to protect, I'm assuming, against thingy. And there we see Ultranite coming in and removing the mini little bear. Baby bear has gone home for dinner, and Daddy bear is still eating his porridge on the battlefield.
His steadfast porridge from Arbor Mage.
Yep,
Old home recipe.
indeed, indeed.
Ursa Major capturing the halberdier.
Indeed, indeed. Let's have a quick look at the. Let's have a quick look at the. I can't move them. Sorry. Could you separate the lost piles so we can have a quick look at seeing what the gold rack up is, so we can see where the armies sit in terms of gold lost.
Ooh, well, right now things are not looking super good for our friend Jacob. There's a lot of lost gold and a lot of lost units for him down on this side. A total of 18 plus 7, 25 gold to his opponent's 9.
Yeah.
This could be very tough. But one thing I do want to point out is that Ursa Major is now in the opponent's back line. It's now sitting in the opponent's house. It's getting healed up, debuff removed. That could be absolutely devastating for Gravy later on in this game. That Ursa Major stomping around and eating those spellcasters could completely turn this around.
Yep, indeed. Indeed. But like I said, it's still damaged, right? It has spellproof, so it is safe from the Sunstrike this game. Oh, this round, I should say. Nothing else in Sylvan is damaged at the moment. So at the moment, the Sunstrike is redundant, shall we say. Can't be used anywhere at the moment.
Yep.
Do you know what the buff was they put on Anwyn? I didn't see that, sorry. Oh, ignore spellproof. Oh, ignore spellproof. Whoa.
Ignores spellproof, actually, but then the Ursa Major gets healed back up to full, but then a crossbowman comes in to try and knock it back down again. It's now vulnerable to Sunstrike once more.
Yep. Indeed, indeed. God, and it's sat next to as well. It's sat next to the Enforcer, meaning that can push 2 damage to it as well. The Sunstrike does 1 extra damage because of the staff. This is poised to be poised to be a thriller.
It absolutely is. We're gonna have to see if the Ursa Major can even survive through this round. If it can, that is a Frost Maiden available for it to capture.
Indeed, there we see the 2 mana being spent to rain down that Hammer of Dawn Sunstrike, bang, straight onto Daddy Bear, who's still eating his porridge, albeit a little bit more grumpy now. But that porridge is still in hand, and they're still eating it. 3 hit points left at the moment.
Ultranite in center does mean that things are looking a little bit tricky for Jacob. You never want to see your enemy in the center, especially when you are the person going first, trying to set the tempo for the game.
I suppose also, especially when it's a knight sitting there with 5 damage, 7 health points. Oh, and casually it has 1 armor as well. That is definitely not a unit, a 15 gold unit. You want to see camped up, occupying, and enjoying a nice cup of tea while sat on center hex. That is the last thing anyone wants to see in a game of Legacy's Allure.
Yeah, absolutely. A knight, priest moving in to heal that knight back up, and that means Anwyn is toast. Oh my goodness. Gravy doing some excellent maneuverability. Oh no, Tactician! You know how I was talking about how we always forget about Tactician?
Oh, the +1 power to the Enforcer, meaning it can remove the bear.
Yep, so the Ursa Major goes down. So does Anwyn. And that is a concede from Jacob.
Yeah, I mean, that was just when I thought, okay, Anwyn's being sent home to go babysit Baby Bear. Well, you know what? 2 seconds later, Daddy Bear has finished his porridge and he's being sent home as well. That was like you said, a devastating display by Gravy there. Oh. You can see the formation is up there. Like you mentioned before, the arrowhead formation, perfectly represented at the moment on screen by Gravy. The knight coming up and clearing out in the back line with that +1 movement that was given by Tactician round 1. and then that arrowhead really speared there, and at the front of that arrowhead, an absolutely terrifying Ultra Knight leading the charge.
Yeah, I could not agree more. We were talking about at the start of this round how Priest was out of range, how it was blocked in to heal that Knight. Gravy making expert plays to maneuver his Priest to reactivate that Knight, which we didn't even see, and Tactician coming in at the last moment to give that final extra point of power to a card that is not known for being an attacker, just to close out that Ursa Major. I mean, at this point, I'd be so demoralized, I would concede as well. Absolutely no bad news, no shame on Jacob at all for just missing those few mistakes and it resulting in a snowball game that was virtually impossible to win.
Indeed, indeed. Would you say that came down to more the playing part of the game? Because as you said, both players drafted incredibly well. It was a very, very even matchup going into that draft. And we saw a very tentative round one where neither player really wanted to give more than an inch that they did. They were worried that the other player was so good that they would abuse that trust, shall we say. So you think this was very much a case of that almost very quick burst damage that came out round two just ended up costing it for Jacob.
Yeah, absolutely. This game was decided not during draft at all, but it was decided during gameplay. Gravy made a lot of really sneaky bluffs. He made even me, think that he was doing one thing and then surprise, flips it around right at the end to capture a totally different piece and set up for a totally different activation. Like, I thought his Knight was dead on board and he proved me wrong.
Yep. Well, I think for me, one of the standout plays was the round one where we're saying the longbow watch, he could hit it, he saved it. Priest was sat there, we forgot about the Priest. All of a sudden, Priest removes debuff. Ultra Knight back in the game. He's brought back in from the sin bin. He's there. I want to say fourth quarter of the NHL game.
Oh.
Like, I'm not American, but and he comes on and he hits a slap shot and bang, in you go. Off they go. That's it. Crowd go wild. Team go wild. Everyone goes wild. And that was the start of the snowball effect, shall we say.
I completely agree. Gravy made some of the hypest plays I've seen in a long time in Legacy's Allure, really showing me that there's a lot left in this game to discover and figure out. It's by no means solved. Gravy's on the bleeding edge, man.
Indeed, indeed. But if you guys want to give a go at solving it, by all means, we would welcome you to try and solve this majestic puzzle that is called Legacy's Allure. Then make sure you follow the links down below, and head over to the Discord. It's a very, very nice, very welcoming, very community-friendly Discord where people play every day, every night. People are always playing games in there. Come across and then just learn to play. Give the game a go. If you like it, stick around, play some more games. If you don't like it, hey, you know what? You played an awesome game, 30 minutes, and that's it. Maybe you made a friend as well. I know I certainly did. That's what happened to me. So you guys, all the links to that is in the description below. Also, Kickstarter is still running. If you're interested in supporting the game, then you can go check that out as well through the links below. Once again, a massive thank you, Speed Robo, for joining me. It's an absolute pleasure casting this with you, my friend. And that was a very, very hyped game to enjoy with you tonight.
That it was. I'm always happy to do this casting with you. It's always a blast. And to everybody watching at home, we'll be back next week with even more games, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
Indeed. And for myself, from Speed Robo, from Daddy Bear, and from Baby Bear, have a great evening, day, morning, or goodbye.